Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our final session of IDTX 2022, the discussion panel on whether we're moving beyond the purview of blended learning, maybe, and into mixed learning, whatever that may or may not mean to us. Slight change to the roster. You may have noticed that I am me, and not in fact Mitch. We're just waiting to see if he's available to join or not, and in the meantime we're going to get the ball rolling. So I suppose brief introductions are probably in order, because I think we've got some new members of the audience, and yeah, let's start there. Let's start with you, Jonathan.
All right, my name is Jonathan Rock. I am a senior GMP training specialist for an animal health pharmaceutical company. So what GMP stands for is good manufacturing practices. So basically that means compliance. I need to make sure that I can defend the people at my site in an audit when they come in, when the Food and Drug Administration or the European Medicines Association comes in and says, all right, we're taking a tour of your area. We're going to look through all your documents. I need you to prove to me that these people are qualified to be doing their jobs. And so that's part of what I do. I manage our LMS to show, okay, here are the curricula that you build, and these represent the minimum requirements to be considered qualified to do your job unsupervised. I keep track of when people go through that, and then I can prove that when we're audited. I also oversee our new employee orientation program. I create the e-learning, and I have to keep the quality training program going for making sure that we're staying in compliance. So, yeah, kind of a lot of hats. It's kind of a weird gig. I don't report through L&D. I don't report through HR. I report up through quality. So I'm reporting to a bunch of chemists. So for a while, I was the lone stranger there. Felt like a unicorn working around a bunch of horses and everything. But everybody was like, "What's that thing on your face?" But yeah, that's me.
Awesome, Cara.
How do I even compete with that? First of all, I just want to say I'm glad to be back. And second, this is kind of a nice dream to actually be on a panel with Jonathan Rock. So hopefully we don't crack each other up the whole time. So I'm Cara North. I am the training operations manager at a company that manufactures silicon wafers for the semiconductor industry. So kind of like Jonathan, we aren't in kind of a L&D role in the sense of it's kind of like one L&D department to kind of rule them all. I'm actually in operations. So I report up through operations, and throughout the pandemic, I'm sure you've heard about the global semiconductor shortage. And so our company has exploded in hiring and building out different products. So a lot of what I manage is manage, again, kind of like Jonathan, new hire orientation. And we are launching actually on Monday our first machinist specific curriculum and training, which is going to be incredible because, as you can imagine, working with the kind of material that we work with, it's really kind of difficult to find people that have experience in this. So we're trying to open this up and diversify and get people that don't have traditional machinist experience to kind of get them in the door and get them acclimated to what would make them successful from a machinist perspective and train them up. So I have a team of 8 that report directly to me, and we do instructor-led training, e-learning, and then of course the all other duties as assigned.
Awesome. And I'm Tom. I drink a lot and organize loss-making events like this. No, that's not all of it. I do more than that.
Wait a second. Is this one of those AA meetings? Do I have to start confessing?
I'm just laying the groundwork for the fact that as soon as I can reach across my desk, I'm getting a beer. Yeah, I have a small learning consultancy in the UK called Evolve Learning Design, where we give ourselves stupid job titles, and probably more practically, we work with businesses to kind of design campaign and cluster-based approaches to try and address specific performance issues within their business. I'm also the senior ID at I Am Learning, who are an off-the-shelf content production company specializing in animated content, with a kind of focus around compliance, health and safety, and supporting businesses with their kind of more generic content that they can then build upon to help build out their platform. So I guess a good place to start is the last couple of years have changed some stuff. You might not have noticed, but there's been a few, just little changes. And I guess, how's that impacted, for both of you individually, I guess, your approach, what you do, and what your business is asking you for?
Do you want to start this one off, Cara?
Sure. So basically, I started this role right when that change had happened. So I took this role in May of 2020. And this organization, again, manufacturing, they were also kind of figuring out what remote work looks like. It was certainly new for everyone in the company. So up until I started in May to in December, the way that people were onboarded was they had a 2-day kind of call with, all the basics from HR, your paperwork, your environmental health safety training, like kind of get you started. And then at that point, they actually physically came on site and then reported to the particular area that they were hired for. And so what my team did is we created a better onboarding program. So actually December 14th, 2020, I'll never forget it. We launched an in-person training program. And when I told people, yeah, we're back in person late, people like, what? But the organization, I have to say, took it very seriously. They take health and safety very seriously. So temperatures were screened, people wore masks, people wore gloves, and the entire training center was spaced out. Everyone had individual desks, computers. There's a lot of space for everything going on. So the big reason why we decided to kind of do it in person again is because we do have a lot of folks that come from various different backgrounds. And so we actually have people that don't have high speed internet where they live. And we actually have people that don't own a computer, and maybe their mobile device doesn't really run the things that we used very well. So being able to have that, and then also pairing them with their supervisors, and they're able to learn more about the business that they're doing, it just made sense since they were also going to be kind of on site doing their jobs anyway. And the organization I work at, most of the people that work in operations work 12-hour shifts, so they're going to spend a lot of time on site when they are actually there. So getting them acclimated back to, again, coming in and getting ready for that was really really important. So I think I mentioned in my introduction, we're launching a machinist training on Monday. And so we're actually simultaneously running. We have new hire orientation on Monday, then we have the machinist training on Monday. So I'm actually going to be bouncing between both sites all next week. But it should be really, really fun. So I'm really excited about it.
Wow. So a fair bit going on then. And that pace wise, is that set to continue? Is that set to change?
I'll just put it this way: the last 14 months has just been onboarding a palooza, and I will tell you, had I known that that's what this job would be, I would have had a better mindset about it. But it's just the circumstance of the business, it's just the world that we're living in now. We have also been able to launch e-learning. Before I came, the company didn't have any proprietary e-learning that anyone had built. So I actually built the first e-learning for the company, which was kind of cool. And then I decided to purchase the software, and then I upskilled my team on how to use things appropriately. So I'm hoping that things kind of slow down a little bit so we can support people that are already here. Not saying that onboarding is not important. Most certainly it is. I take it very seriously. I know J-Rock also takes it seriously as well, because we've kind of been a support system to one another kind of through this, because onboarding is tough. I mean, it is very it takes a lot of energy out of people. Even if you love training, it takes a lot of energy out of people to do it well. So yeah, I'm hoping that some of the pace will change in the future, but currently right now I don't really have any of that information.
Cool.
So maybe I can talk a little bit about, because I was on the same journey with the new employee orientation as what Kara's talking about. First, I'll talk to you a little bit about my philosophy on new employee orientation. Like, I feel like companies spend an amazing amount of talent, time, and resources on recruiting, and then we just stop recruiting them just because they walked in the door, right? And studies show that we've got about a 6-week window where people will make a long-term decision about their future with this company. Like, it is the first 6 weeks where they decide this is a stepping stone or this is my forever home, right? And so the way I'm looking at it, new employee orientation, yeah, you've got to cover the bases as far as compliance training, environmental health and safety, corporate culture and that kind of stuff. But this is your window to kind of confirm the sale. Like, are they going to have the buyer's remorse that they're giving your company a shot? And so I wanted to be very intentional about having culture as part of that. Like, we spend an hour on culture. Our site leader comes and delivers the first overview and gets a chance to meet everybody and get to know their name. And then I have a series of, depending on who's available, different colleagues that will share their experiences. And one of the guys is brilliant, and he's been there. He started off with you know, two parent companies ago as a janitor and worked his way up, and he's a project engineer now. And so he's got like this awesome view of the whole history of what it means to be one of us. And so I want that to come out, because I'm a firm believer in like showing examples of what we do here, and oh, by the way, you're one of us now, so that people can kind of get that ethos and get that, how are we going to treat each other? Are we going to be humble and correctable and approachable? Are we going to approach each other to benefit the other person as opposed to putting us in our place? You know what I mean? So, and I feel like there's a really good culture where I work, and part of that is a competitive advantage, because in Kalamazoo, Michigan, there are a lot of other people that doing what we do that we have to compete with for talent. So, um, with all of that in mind, I think the best new employee orientation experiences are in person, live, face to face. But March of 2020 kind of threw a monkey wrench into all of that, because everybody was trying to deal with this new reality, and we didn't know too much about the virus, and we did not know how it spread. And so one of the measures was, we have 3 different buildings at our site. We have South Campus, we have labs, we have 2 different manufacturing buildings. And the idea then was, boom, we're going to lock them down, and you can't move between buildings without written permission. And so the first iteration of my new employee orientation, like, I got sent home. There was, as Kara's talking about, I think in an earlier session, there are, in a manufacturing facility, there are people that are very much essential to production. And the top value is we need to protect those people, because we can't work without them. They need to be here. They can't work from home. So anybody that's a support, sending them home. So I'm still actually remote, but I come in a lot for the new employee orientations. But the first version of that, it was almost like trying to put on a simulcast, because I needed to have, I had a series of presenters. I needed to have a room that had cameras and microphones so they could teach to the room, but also teach to the other rooms. And so then we had projectors in conference rooms in the other 2 buildings, and I had a person kind of as a facilitator there to make sure all the tech was working. And we tried to spread our facilitators out, because our facilitators were in different buildings too. And so, like, it was, in that case, I stopped delivering some of my content and just became like a virtual producer, where the guy would be talking and I would be watching the chat, and I'd interrupt him, and say, hey, there's a question in the chat. So and so in this site is asking this question. And so it was very focused, and it took a lot of effort. And then it evolved again. We found out, okay, well, if we have masks, then they can all come to one building and be together. And so that made my life a little easier. But then it was like, all of a sudden, and I'm sure you guys remember this, telling my trainers, you guys can teach in person again. Yay. But guess what? You got to have this thing over your face, right? Did you have those kind of conversations, Cara, with the masks?
Yeah, so we still wear masks, and then I know there was one time we had a new hire who needed to read lips, and so we got special permission to wear a shield so
Hmm.
he could read our lips. But yeah, we still wear masks, we still wear gloves, we still get our temperature screened every day. So I do
Yeah.
have to say, I think that our organization has taken it very, very seriously, and I'm
Yeah.
very thankful for that.
And you have to, because again, you're sharing your company's values. These people have just signed on with you. They're giving you a chance, but they're still not sure about you. And so if you fall down on like protecting them, like doing the basics to make them feel safe there, then you're unwittingly conveying the worth of your company to people who may be like, you know what, this isn't really for me after all. And so that was a challenge to try and come through and say, all right, we've got this many conference rooms, maybe we can still be in the same building, but if this many people show up, we can't use the room we usually use, because it's only, if we social distance, we can only fit 12 people in there, and I have to have my instructors as part of that maximum. So that was another thing we had to figure out, is like, what are the logistics. When I first built our new employee orientation, I thought content was going to be the most important, most difficult part. Content is a breeze compared to getting the butts in the chairs, right? You've got to make sure their managers can spare them. You got to make sure they know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. Like, there is a lot, and with multiple campuses, like, how do we get people from one to the other if they don't have transportation? Like, if they take the bus to work, with social distancing, am I allowed to just have people come in my car and ride it? Like, there's all these dimensions of the logistics part that makes it difficult.
If I may just to butt in
Please.
here, just I mean, exactly the exact same challenges that you were having. We ended up, I was given a training space in one of our facilities. We have two facilities. They're about, I would say, an hour ish drive from one another. So, I mean, they're not even on the same campus, but they're like an hour drive away. We had to play the song and dance of which site we were going to be able to do the new hire orientation due to the
Yeah.
growth of our company, due to we had a open training space, but then they're like, no, we need that for production now. Now we need to find another place to stick you. So we actually have bus transportation that will take people between the sites for the new hire orientation now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How hard did you have to, like, twist arms to get that down, or was that a pretty easy yes from
Well, I
maybe?
have to say, believe it or not, our HR department did all that heavy lifting. So
Sweet.
I can't take credit for that. They were the ones that orchestrated that, and through that they kind of use that stiff arm that they have that I don't. So
Yeah. All right. So, and interrupt me again if what I'm saying sounds familiar to your experience, but just like with where you are, we experienced a rapid growth during the pandemic, because we're dealing with livestock, but we're also dealing with companion animals. So petables and edibles is how you can think of it. um, so the thing is, a lot of people got COVID pets, or if they already had pets, started spending a lot more time with their pets and became more aware of their animals' needs and stuff. So, um, at the same time, we've been coming up with new medicines and solutions that we didn't have before. And so our site has just been like, it seems like every week we get an email from HR saying these are the posted positions, and there's like 30 to 40. And so, like, at the same time as new employee orientation was getting harder, it was also getting overwhelmed, where we were having just tons of people come in. And what happened in our case is that compromises were made that made sense for the business that weren't necessarily best for the learner. Where a lot of in-person stuff got turned into e-learning, because we have the slide decks. We can just, use Storyline and make this something that people can take on their own. We run 3 different shifts. So if somebody came in and for whatever reason missed their first week of new employee orientation and then they were on third shift, it is a hardship to get somebody to come back to a first shift training if all of their childcare and their whole life is built around the schedule that they're on. So we made a lot of decisions that made sense in the time, but they made business sense for the company and convenience for the managers. But we had like a lot of, like, we had a full day training on day one, just 8 hours. You come in, you sit down, and we hit you with, you know, we hit you with culture, we hit you with site overview, we hit you with good manufacturing practices, environmental health and safety, data integrity. We just a ton of stuff, and that was for the contractors. And then the colleagues had to come back for another full day of operational excellence stuff, Lean Six Sigma, that kind of thing. And especially if it's a person who's coming on to third shift and you're going to sit them down during the middle of their night and just give them 8 hours of classroom, and especially if they're, someone who's used to being active, working on their feet, walking around, getting a lot of change. And you just take them right back to their school days of sitting in here in this, room. Um, it got tough. And so we made the decision, all right, we're going to try and overhaul it again. even though we still have a ton of people coming in, and even though there's all these COVID things, we were like, let's just see what we can ask for, and just like not self-select out of all the things our brain's going to say, oh well, they're not going to go for this because this is awful and this is going to be less convenient. So let's just jettison all of that and just ask for the Cadillac. And maybe they will be the ones to tell us no about certain stuff, but like we may wind up farther closer to what we want than if we spoke up for them. You know what I mean? So we pushed it out, instead of 2 full days, we pushed it out to 4 days, and it's half days, and they come in the morning, we go through some stuff with them, and then they get dismissed to their area so they can get some context, they can get introduced to their teams, they can work on the line, and when they come back the next day, they've got like a framework to hang some of the details we're given on them. Did you have a similar experience, Cara, to where like the first reaction was like business needs, or was it more like, no, we're going to keep our trainees in mind the whole time?
No, 1,000,000% business needs, right? Because at the end of the day, we are there to support business. It's obviously we're kind of, I like to think, the gatekeeper and the try to keep the user in the mind for everything. But at the end of the day, business is business is business. But I love what you said about making those adjustments. As you all were continuing to grow, we did the exact same thing. We had kind of we would collect daily evaluation feedback, and through our daily evaluation feedback, we made a lot of changes. So, for example, we had a session on how to handle the material that we create, and there was a lot of people saying, "Well, this is all good information, but I'd really like to, get my hands there," because they don't want to sit in a classroom all day. So we ended up building this practicum where we got scrap material from the factory, and wanted to see, can you identify the defect where it is, can you lift it? We have stuff that, I am not a very tall person. I don't know if you all know that or not, but I have stuff that I can't even hardly lift, and I'm like, goodness, how do they do this on the floor? So getting them like actually to do things is, I think, really really critical. And then seeing the great evaluation from that. Dr. Michael Allen says that when it's time to perform, it's not time to practice. And I feel like that is the true great thing about an in-person experience, is there are more times to physically touch things. And, especially in a manufacturing environment, yes, scenarios are fantastic. Yes, e-learning is great to get a lot of the content out there, so everyone's getting the same experience. But there are things that do require, in my opinion, that hands-on touch that an instructor-led experience can give.
And actually, to that point, we've got a question that's just come in from Mohammed. How can we adjust I'm assuming EL is e-learning practices for training soft skills or technical manual skills? Does the mixed learning solutions make a meaningful difference, and how?
You want to start that one, J-Rock?
I can. Sure. I think first, let's not kid ourselves about what e-learning is, right? Like the main value, and I learned this from Joe Suarez, the main value of when we first designed the idea of e-learning was it was a convenience play. It was efficiency. If I've got a course that I'm delivering over and over again, and I've got people on second shift and third shift, the value of e-learning is that I can make sure that everybody asynchronously has the same experience, regardless of when they are taking it. As long as they, have a way to access it and the time devoted to that they're not interrupted, we can have a similar experience. But I think there are very few things that e-learning, there are some, but I don't think it has the same kind of affordances that instructor-led training does. Like, for example, we were talking about, compliance training being part of the new employee orientation. For me, it is so easy to look at compliance training as a dusty, boring old book of rules, right? And our brains, if you guys remember Lauren Waldman's presentation, our brains are constantly looking for like what's important and what can I ignore, because I'm trying to keep this organism alive and I'm trying to process all the subconscious emotions and feelings that are going on, and like anything that it can ignore, it will. And that's a good thing. But so things that are very, very important, though, how do we focus them around that? Well, one of my solutions is with compliance, it's not just about being a good doobie and getting your check mark or your gold star. Like for me, compliance is about pain. So when I was building my new employer orientation, I was looking at all the other NEOs that I'd been a part of, and like they all seem to focus on like, well, what it will cost the company if we're not compliant. And they were like, these financial penalties and stuff. And that's very real. And like I have examples of like companies that got like 2 sites got shut down and 95 people lost their jobs. And so like that's very real, but I don't think it focuses the same way as if you look at like what really happens if you don't sweat the small stuff. So I have 3 slides. The first slide, just a picture of people at an event where tragedy struck, and you just see like one woman hand over her face, and I just don't say a word. I just say, "Does anybody know what happened on this date?" And I have the date up, and I just let it kind of impact them. And then in the very next slide, you see a horse down on its side with a bag of ice over it, and the owner is walking away with his hand over his face. And I tell the story of the Lechuza, Caracas, Venezuelan polo team. I don't want to get into the whole thing, but a long story short, there was the U.S. Polo Open. They came to America. There was a drug called Biodil that was not approved for use in the United States yet at the time, but was widely available around the world. It was vitamins and minerals that help ponies recover after a strenuous polo match. They went to a compounding pharmacy, which at the time was not held to the same GMPs that the pharmaceutical manufacturers are. And there was a tech that mixed the wrong amount of selenium. He was supposed to put 0.5 milligrams in, and he put 5 milligrams in. And 3.3 milligrams is fatal to a horse. And so, as a result, 21 ponies died in one day. And so I show those 2 images, and then I show a picture of one of the vets that was administering care. And she's just sitting there next to a horse with an IV, the thing's on its side, and you can just see the pain on her face. And I say, following the good manufacturing practices is how we keep our word to our customers. We don't ever want to cause animals to suffer. We don't ever want to cause the people that love and care for them to feel like this woman did on that day. And I feel like that is an emotional hook that I can put in there and say, all right, now let's look at what some of these, safeguards we can put in place to make sure we never give anybody a day like that. And I just don't feel like that kind of emotional gut punch works on e-learning the same way as standing up there and like they can hear your voice quivering while you're telling them about this horrible thing that happened. And I'm kind of a sick guy. I'm always hoping at least one person cries in my new employee orientations when I go through that slide. I had one lady reach for a hanky. That's as far as it's gotten, but um there is a presence and an immediacy to telling those kind of stories and showing those kind of images that you just don't get from click next. So I think we need to be very strategic and say, all right, what are the things that we can make in e-learning? Like maybe there's a bunch of those compliance rules that I can say, I'm going to create an e-learning for this, and they can take it on their own time. But at the beginning of the course, I'm going to do a callback to what we talked about in class. So they remember, hey, if I don't pay attention to this, I could sicken and harm animals and the people that love them. So that was a huge like word salad I just gave you, Muhammad. I'm sorry if I hope that answered your question, but I'm really passionate about that part of it.
No, I think that's spot on. I think it's actually the reason why it has to be a mix. And it's funny as a for most businesses acting as an external partner that I work with, it's been interesting to see the shift where at the very start of all this it was make everything e-learning. It's the only way we can possibly go. And F's going, that's a really bad idea. We'd rather not take your money. To them now going, oh, actually, yeah, do you know what? You can't do that, can you? It's like, no, you can't. And your team was telling you that, and we were telling you that, and now, but I think it kind of, with everything for a long time, it can't be e-learning at all. Then it all had to be e-learning, and only now I think are we starting to get the awareness and of the impact of going totally one way or the other, as more businesses have actually done that. We've got loads coming in the chat. Lots of comments about that story.
Can I make just a sidebar comment to Mohammed's question real fast?
Sure, yeah.
So from a leadership perspective, you'll probably get sick of hearing me say this, but I'm going to keep beating my accountability drum. We can only do so much. We have to have the partnerships of people's managers and the leaderships of our organizations to make sure that this matters to people. And, the soft skills, why does it matter? Because you don't want to work with somebody who's a jerk. And if that person is a jerk, I'm a firm believer that the culture of a company is the behavior that it tolerates. So if they are going to let people be jerks, and then they're going to make people go through this soft skills, and then the person say, oh, I wasn't trained, that person needs to be held accountable. Actually, you were, and your leader has talked to you about this X, Y, and Z times. This is why you need to improve. So I think that, I love J Rock's example, but I think ultimately training is not a solution and cannot fix a culture of lack of accountability. And I think that so often we get used as scapegoats. I know I said that in my last session too, but I really want to harp on it. And we do not have this magic bullet. If we could change the hearts and minds of people, we'd be in the manipulation business. And I don't think that's what we do. So really having kind of a set thought that, listen, we can only take it so far, but we got to have buy-in from the business. We got to have buy-in from leadership to hold people accountable. I think that is the true magic of making sure that this stuff sticks.
I'm so glad that you said beating the accountability drum and not beating a dead horse, because that would have been such a horrible metaphor after my story.
Oh, dear. Well, I was warned. Okay. So if you've got any more questions, guys, please do throw them in. So I'm quite interested to ask then, as you've kind of had to change and adjust these onboarding programs, what kind of change in the end result have you been seeing, if any? I think I know the goal is kind of just maintain the standard would be if it was all good before, but have you noticed any changes, any things that have had to be picked up more further down the line, I guess?
I'll take a stab at it. So before there wasn't really anything. So really it was a low bar to start with, right? But as we kind of built this out, one thing that I think J Rock kind of talked to a little bit earlier is I would notice that if we were able to get that person's leader and their peers to just even come and welcome them, we just saw a tremendous change. I will never forget, we hired a guy a few months ago and just really kind of timid, really, struggled with a lot of the content, expressed, concerns to me, concerns to the other trainers. I just don't know. I just don't feel good about this. Like, I don't know if I can do this job. Right. And we, of course, assured him, yes, you can do it. You're here. That's half the battle. We'll help guide you, but the rest of that week, this guy became like the most popular person. And I wish I remember what he got hired for, but he must have really got hired for something special because almost all of his team came in at different times to meet him. And they're like, oh, hey, yeah, you're the new guy. We're so excited to have you on the team. And even the leader of that part of the organization even came and said, you know what? We're so glad that you're here. And I will never forget this. He came to me at the end of the week and he was almost in tears. And he said, you know what? I'm glad I stayed. He said, I feel like I matter. And you can't get that necessarily in e-learning. Right? Just the thought of somebody taking the time out, showing that they care, it really matters. I mean, it really does matter. And I don't think I'll ever kind of forget that particular person. Another one is we had another employee that moved across the country. We're in the state of Ohio in the United States. Moved from the West Coast, came to Ohio, left his family behind to take a role at our organization. 2 days after he gets in Ohio and gets settled, getting ready to start, he gets the ends up in the hospital away from his family. And the organization kept calling him, checking in on him, making sure he was okay. And when he finally got there, he told us that story, that our organization kept checking on him, making sure he was okay. And he said, why wouldn't I want to work here? He said, I felt so low and I was away from my family. And he said, I feel like you all care about me and I want to stay here. So from a heart perspective, I know heart is a really hard metric to quantify, but there's something really gratifying about kind of that instant gratification that you get from a face-to-face experience, that you can see that glisten in their eye, that you can see that interpersonal language. And it's really special. So there, I took a sad story and hopefully made a happy story. So there you go.
But I think an interesting point there as well is that while heart is difficult to measure, retention isn't. In fact, it's something that businesses are panicking about right now. And you've got to ask if there's a bit of a link between the company saying, well, we'll just send them e-learning, and those bottoming out retention figures, which are kind of sweeping the world at the moment.
And that can be a self-reinforcing weakness, right? Like I think as trainers, especially as facilitators, turnover is like our natural enemy. Because if somebody sits through all your classes and you just pour yourself out there and put your time and energy and youth, just you can just see the candle burning away, and then they just ghost on you after that first week. It's like that was like casting rose petals into the Grand Canyon, you know? And so it can get easy to be jaded and be like, well, we'll just make them all take this e-learning, right? Because then I didn't, it didn't cost me anything extra. But you're exactly right, Tom. Like it's about so much more than checking off the training box. It's about, you know, do I belong at this company? Like one of the things we do, you know, back in the before COVID, we part of our new employee orientation was we took them on an end-to-end tour from where the trucks pull up to the dock to all the products coming in through the warehouse, you know, where they check and go over the quality control of the incoming materials. I mean, every production floor, labs, everything. We showed them the whole thing, and we told them, hey, you know, you got your company overview, you got your site overview, and then these are the different parts of the site. And I made a point to tell them, make sure you got your eyes open when you're walking around here. Because maybe the role that you're getting hired into is perfect for you right now, but there may be something you want to grow into later. And like, write down the names of the people you see, make sure to have lunch with them and say, hey, if I wanted to do this, are there any classes I need to take? Are there any experiences I need to have? I'm trying to capture that mindset of, hey, this is a place I can grow and try other things. And like, this could be good for my success, not just good for the company's success. And you really can't get that from an e-learning. So let me ask you guys, since we all make e-learning here, how do you make the call when you're like, okay, we've got this much content? What stuff are you like, I need to fight for this to be in person versus what is it where like this actually would work better as an e-learning or an email or whatever, you know, like how do you make those decisions?
Time and resources. It depends on when it hits, where it is in the quarter, what I'm already committed to. That's a really kind of bad answer, but it's a truthful answer, because there's a lot of different constraints kind of going on at the time. I also factor in, is this a stakeholder and department that is easy to work with, or is these are prickly pears that, you know, they say the chicken little, the sky is falling, but yet they won't respond to an email for a month. That factors into it.
Yeah.
Seriously, that completely factors into it as well.
And that is a good answer, Cara. Like, I want us to take the masks off. You know, like I feel like when you're first new in this industry and you start off, there's all these thou shouts that we just kind of internalize, right? Like only serious games, only serious e-learning games. We can't do any fun, silly games, right? And everyone, you know, we don't know any better. We're brand new, and so we're like, okay, and I write it down. Then if I see somebody do something fun, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like rake them over the coals because I wrote that down number 3. We're not supposed to do that, right? And it's like, don't be an order taker and always, you know, have the highest level. And it's like, man, sometimes you just gotta pick your battles and say, you know what? Maybe this is not a hill I'm going to die on today. And like I think that's very real, and I think people that if you haven't come up against that yet, you're going to have to decide where your idealism meets the real world, and you're going to have to say, you know what, I can't fight hard for every single battle. There's going to be stuff I want to reserve my cultural capital for, where I'm like, this is where I'm going to dig my heels in, and maybe if I let them have this other one, that won't be as big of a thing. Tom, you're nodding. What's your thoughts on this, man?
So at Evolve, we have a phrase for this, which is we're a business, not a church. Nothing is absolute. There is an exception to every rule. And whilst I might say we only take fun projects, we did recently finish a massive project on the German tax system, which was really exciting, but super necessary for that client. And really that it's about getting over the other saying is we're the only people in this project that care about learning. The business doesn't care about learning, it cares about the business, its bottom line, its profits, or whatever metric it's measuring. And it's about putting those first, which is a bit of an ego hit when you're the L&D people. But you have to be willing to take that backseat because that's the job. You get to be proud of your work, but just no one else particularly cares about it unless it goes wrong. And part of that is just having honest conversations with clients about, yes, what is doable. And I think when I was in-house, it was very similar to what Cara was saying. It's kind of slightly different now, because where people bring us a problem, they are looking for us to go, this is the solution that you need. And they're, I would argue, more willing to listen to us than when I worked in-house. When I was working in-house, it was a much more uphill persuasion, because if you work for the company, you know nothing. But if you're external, you're an expert. How that works, I don't know. But that seems to be the way it is. So now it's slightly different, but certainly in-house it was all the same stuff. I don't think that's new pandemic-wise. I think that's always been L&D's kind of position, but maybe we're noticing it more now because there's so much more going on at once.
And did I give you a chance to answer the earlier question of how you make that call as far as what should be in person versus what should be e-learning?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? If I had an answer to that, I'd print it and sell billions of copies overnight. Really long conversations, interviews with the end user, generally not speaking to SMEs, because SMEs know their content very well. They know nothing about what's important to the people doing the job, has been my experience. Again, it's finding those emotional beats, and anything that is where emotion is integral for me is not e-learning. Absolute worst case scenario, it could be very high production value video, but that's very rarely viable. And so face-to-face is the best way of delivering it, because people can create emotion, machines can't. There's maybe been 1 or 2 pieces of e-learning ever that's got some level of deep emotional reaction, I think. And the amount of work that had to go in to get that is disproportionate to had you just gone deliver it face to face. And certainly when dealing with from a client perspective, there's the argument of, well, look, sure, we can do this as e-learning, but it's going to cost 10 times as much and take 10 times as long. How does that sound to you? Bad? Cool, let's do it properly, shall we? That's the
point. Well, I think another thing that to think about is like e-learning was designed as an efficiency play, right? But if you've got to do it in a class, at most you can waste the time of like 30 people at a time. Whereas an overly long e-learning has an exponential amount of waste in time and effort that you can inflict on your organization. Like and I don't want to be careful not to poison the well here, but like how many global trainings have been rolled out that were like took you an hour to do, and it was glossy and beautiful, and it had actors and everything, and it could have just been like one big PDF that says, number 1, don't sexually harass people. Number 2, don't bribe foreign officials. You know, like we get a different course for each bullet point, and it's like, it's a click speed simulator. Everyone just jams on the next button until they get to the easy quiz, and then you don't even need to read the question. Just, I would report that. That's suspicious. That's harassment.
100%. But to that point, that is what a lot of people say, oh, look, they passed the quiz, they know it. And then that's a whole nother soapbox I don't know if I want to get into here today is, no, that doesn't mean that they know it. That means that they have good deduction skills. Awesome. You write really horrible questions. That's all that tells me. That doesn't tell me that they are not going to sexually harass somebody, right? And I think that's the problem with a lot of what I call off-the-shelf options, is that it's so kind of high level generic. Sometimes it's really hard for me to see myself in that. And I think that's why a lot of times compliance gets a bad rap. I know somebody who made this really wicked, awesome compliance course that I like it because I could actually see myself in it, because I'm going through a day in the life of the person collecting these little things and getting these good manufacturing practices little info, right? So I think that it can be done, but yeah, just because somebody checks the boxes and completes it, that is not 1, learning transfer. 2, that's not behavior change. And 3, it's not legally defensible in a court of law.
It's underwear, right? Like, I don't know why that guy harassed her. He signed off on our e-learning. You know what I mean? Like, we did our part. He signed off.
the conversation I always end up having when people want to do exactly those courses in that way is, why do you inherently distrust your people so much? You just hired them. Why are you trusting people you think are going to do all this stuff if you don't give them a course not to? Like, what is wrong with your recruitment process? It's like, if you have to have a course about not sexually harassing your coworkers, your recruitment is the problem, not training.
Yeah.
It's a weird issue to shift.
To be fair, though, I think in the United States there is some kind of legal aspect to that, of the occupational safe OSHA or some. There's some
Hmm.
law that requires some of this, and then that's why I think it gets such a bad rep as well. But yeah, I'm with you 100%. If you aren't making better hiring decisions than that, then shame on you, right?
Or trusting your people. You know, if there's a minimum requirement you have to do by law, trust that that's what your people need. If you start from a place of assuming your people will do the most terrible things if you don't tell them not to, then you'll be training forever. You know, do you have to train them not to light each other on fire? Do you have to train them not to throw cigarette butts into the petrol? You know, it's, where do you draw that line? Otherwise,
Have
if
you
there's a
guys
legal
watched,
requirement, deliver it, but then stop, kind of thing.
have you guys watched Seinfeld before? Like, there's an episode where there's this character named George Costanza, and he gets called into his boss's office because they found out that he'd been fooling around with the cleaning lady at work after hours. And his defense was that wrong? Should I not have done that? I think people like that may be why.
This is it.
But
So have them sign the document, send them an email with the policy in it. It doesn't need training. If it's a case of you must legally follow this policy, tell them that and give them the policy. It may not be fun and jazzy, but
yeah.
you know, if you're only doing it to legally cover yourself anyway, what's the point in wasting twice as much time and L&D's effort? That's the biggest thing. Is your L&D team is stretched enough already? Everyone's asking for a million things yesterday. Ask them to prioritize the stuff that really makes a difference.
Well, I
We
think
have
we've uncovered a principle here, right? Which can apply to
Mm.
other things besides e-learning, is who is the actual intended audience for this, and what is the business need they're trying to solve? Because if it is just, hey, we need to check a box that everybody was told, you know, not to bribe foreign officials, that would be one of those ones where it's not the hill to die on, saying, I'm going to make a really creative version of this, because you may go all extra on it. Maybe you need to get an extension because you can't get it done on time because you're doing something beyond. And then you might get gigged on your performance review because they didn't want all that. You were casting your pearl before swine. And because you had this inner rule that you had, everything had to have the utmost level of integrity. And another area that I think about that for is standard operating procedures. And I say this in our new employee orientation. I say, you are not the only audience for an SOP. Like, you may think, hey, this is just a training document for me to learn from. But an SOP is also a promise to all of the countries where we sell our product that this is how we do it every single time. So, like, if you find a better and more efficient way to do it, or safer, or whatever, you can't just do it immediately the new way until you update the SOP through the change control process, because this is us giving our word that this is how we do it. So it's not just, don't just look at it like, oh, it's just for me to be trained on. It's, this is the other audiences, inspectors and regulators and that kind of thing. And so if you can bring that dimension to all of the stuff that we're asked to do, then maybe it might make it a little bit easier to know where you're going to pick your battles and stuff. Say, all right, if this is for new employee orientation, if this is for capturing the hearts and minds of our new people, this is where I'm going to dig in my heels and make sure, and I'm going to give them a really good experience. And if this is an annual GMP refresher, it's just boring stuff that everybody has to train on every year anyway. Maybe this will be, since I've got a year to do it, maybe this will be where I do my funzo stuff, right? My silly stuff that would get frowned on by the rest of the industry. Maybe this is where I put zombies into it. Maybe this is a Stranger Things monster that's going to kill you instead of a quiz and make you take it over again, because I got a little bit of time with it and the stakes are low because it's just underwear, right? And then you get those in the middle cases where it's like, this has an impact on the people that I'm trying to train, but it also might have something ulterior. And that's where I think it can get interesting. But just be very honest with yourself about what business need is it solving, and you don't have to bring your white knight persona that you're going to set the world right on every single thing that comes your way.
We've got a question come in, actually. It might have to be the last one, as we're into our last 5 minutes. So, with children not able to attend school physically and seeing that they are bored with virtual learning, like the rest of us, in inverted commas, and the teacher droning on, and for some of these children, online learning does not work, what would be a solution to meet their needs whilst they attend school physically and to make up all of the lost time? How do we speed up the process of learning? I mean, the second one is the killer question, right? But any thoughts? 'Cause I don't think any of us specifically work with that kind of educational world. So I'm not sure I have the expertise to really have any meaningful answer for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, again, that is an amazing question, and
Mm.
the only impact or the only insight I have is just as a parent. I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are amazing at online learning. My youngest, my daughter Katie, she you don't even need to help her log in. She's like, give me the Chromebook. She goes, sets up. She interacts with the teacher. She has a great time. My middle kid, Carson, he's got Down syndrome, and he really benefit. I mean, we've gotten amazing support at his school from all the different interventions and stuff. But like online learning is a challenge, and sometimes it's unintentionally hilarious. Like I remember one time he was in an online classroom. My wife was like lying down on the couch behind so she could hear, but she wasn't there to distract him, and all of a sudden she hears the teacher start saying, all right, let's remember to be respectful in the chat. And so my wife just kind of does one of those like lean up and look over, and Carson had written the word poop in the chat. And so, like, of course, the first thing is like, don't laugh, because then that'll reward the behavior and he'll never stop. It becomes a game at that point. But the other thing is, like, I know that was distracting for that teacher, but like, I am really proud that he interacted with the chat and spelled the word right and everything. So it's like, yeah. How do you meet them where they're at? And I don't know how you do that without just like almost a homeschool level of support by the parents at home, which not everybody can do. And I think that there are a lot of kids that, like, no matter what we do, the impact of this virus is that they are going to be behind. They have just lost out on where they would have been if it hadn't happened. So yeah, that's a really downer, bummer answer. And please help me. Is it Udpala? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't want to get your name wrong. Um, but uh, but yeah, that's my take on it. I know that doesn't really answer the question. It just kind of shows that we're all dealing with that, and maybe there is no good answer. Maybe we're all just taking the hit on that one. What do you guys think?
I was just going to add one. Carson's definitely yours. You can't deny him. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, that makes complete sense to me that your kid would do that. Teasing. We're friends. I promise. I'm teasing. So I obviously I don't have a K through 12 background either, but I will tell you that when this hit in 2020, I was still in higher education, and so I saw this from a higher education standpoint. And I don't know if this is common for every organization, but I'll just tell you at the university that I was at, the decision was made. Maybe they need to do something online. And then it was just this battle between administrators and colleges. Well, do we do it online? Do we not do it online? And then the days kept going. And then finally, like, okay, we have a great idea. Let's extend spring break another week. And then we just move everything online. And it was complete pandemonium. It was every course in this college needs to be moved online. And I was like, how are we going to do this? Oh, well, just have them upload a syllabus and put a grade book in, and then they're online. They're doing great. So I think that there was probably, again, just for my own experience, one, a lack of support, an absolute lack of support of, I think, a lot of administrations. They just ostrich put their head in the sand and was like, hey, you all just figure it out. So I think there's that. Two, I think because they survived kind of that first wave back in 2020 of putting it online. They're like, oh yeah, all we gotta do is get on the Zoom and, you know, do this, and oh, look at us, we're doing online learning. I'm like, no, you're doing panic gaji. Like, this is not what good online learning looks like. But they don't know what good online learning looks like because this has kind of been their orientation to it the entire time. So I don't want to say that I'm blaming teachers at all. I mean, God bless them. I cannot imagine the workload and the stress that they have on them. But I think, and I just think it speaks volumes to the lack of true support that they had throughout this. And I think that is why we're seeing, I saw someone coin it on LinkedIn, the edu exit. I think that's why we're seeing so many teachers leave in droves, because they had absolute no support on this from their administrations, and no one was prepared, and no one wants to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, and there was like in my oldest daughter's school, there was two different cultures that developed. There was the roomies who were there in person, and there were the Zoomies who were online. And like, I even experienced that with our first version of the new employee orientation, that like you needed a virtual producer in there to be the voice of the Zoomies, because it is so easy to focus on who's in front of you and just teach to the classroom and not even look at the camera and not pause to check the chat and that kind of stuff. And it's a different skill set. And I don't know, like Kara's saying, I don't know if any of those high school teachers or middle school teachers or K through, any of those elementary people, if they had a virtual person that could be the voice of the kids. And so a lot of the kids could probably just, you know, play Minecraft on their second monitor and just miss out, And then in colleges, I know like Cara and I, we did kind of like a little side project trying to help a professor who seemed all gung ho about it, but was way out of his depth and like just never wound up giving us anything because he thought it was going to be easy. And I don't know. I don't want to cast aspersions on the guy. I don't know what he was dealing with, but he wasn't dealing with us. And finally, we just had to fire the client and say, hey, we're getting nothing from the guy who's supposed to build the class. So it's like from all levels, there was either people that didn't have the support they needed, or maybe didn't even have the ability or the interest to do it in a different way than what they'd done before. And I feel like it's the kids that bore the brunt of it. No getting around it.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This has been, I think, really interesting. We have just got last comment there, I think, from Rachel saying there's still no support. And I think that is the problem. I think, yeah, that boils down to it, unfortunately, doesn't it? But fingers crossed for that being fixed in the future.
Well, here's a possible solution. We've got so many teachers that have left education and gone into instructional design. Maybe once they've got their chops, they got their feet under them, they can go back in and be that support and be that translation for the next, if there's any teachers left by then.
And this is it. We're in the position of already running quite low in the UK beforehand. So I'd hate to imagine what that looks like now. I know we've just launched our Anyone Can Be a Supply Teacher program. Just come along, sign up, we'll give you some money, it'll be great. Which is not filling me with joy. But yes, we will wrap up there because we're over time. But thank you both so much. I think this has been super, super interesting. Hopefully everyone in the chat got something out of this. Thank you so much for staying with us right till the end. This is the last session. So this is goodbye, farewell, and don't come back. So it's time to go and sleep for many, many days. No, it's been a real pleasure, and I hope everyone has enjoyed the event. I know some people have already messaged me. There will be another one. No, I do not have it planned yet. No, there are not dates yet. Just a couple of days.
We all have to stock back up on biscuits first, right?
Exactly. That is the one major takeaway, I think, for everyone. biscuits for all. In the next couple of days, you will get a quick email asking you if you'd be so kind to offer some feedback, some about the overall event and some about the specific sessions. Your session feedback will then be sent on to the speakers so that they can see what you thought and get that feedback as well. If you haven't already, please do go and check out all the recordings, and remember to subscribe to the IDT channel. It's the best way to support future events. But other than that, until next time, goodbye and have a great weekend.